The official Vintage Guitar Magazine 2025 price guide has partnered with 33 of the top guitar dealers in the industry to provide the most accurate values for thousands of models. This includes electric guitars, acoustic guitars, basses, amplifiers, effects, mandolins, and banjos. Whether your instrument is an investment or simply a piece you enjoy playing, it's always helpful to know what it's worth. If you're checking out a guitar at your local shop and want to know its value before making the purchase, this guide is your go-to source for all the details. Available in both print and digital editions, you can have the guide right at your fingertips no matter where you go. Use code BUYGUITAR25 to receive 15% off the 2025 price guide when purchased directly from www.vintageguitar.com. Offer expires February 25th, 2025.
Hello and welcome to Buy That Guitar, presented by Vintage Guitar Magazine. I'm your host, Ram Tuli. This podcast is about the joy of guitar. That includes buying guitars, selling guitars, collecting guitars. We're talking vintage guitars, new guitars, used guitars, pre-war, flat tops, electric Spanish arch tops, custom shop guitars, limited edition guitars, basses, amps, effect pedals, lap steels, mandolins, banjo. If it has strings, we're going to talk about it. I spent most of my life studying the vintage guitar market. It's truly something I love and I'm passionate about. I can talk guitars all day, and I'm going to. Hey everybody, welcome again to another thrilling and exciting Buy That Guitar podcast. Today I have a special guest, Garrett Tung from Boingosuarus Music. How you doing, Garrett?
Doing well. How are you?
And your claim to fame, well, many things, of course, is you are on the Vintage Guitar Price Guide. You're on the expert panel or my advisory panel. So you send me in every month. You send me in your sales, and you specialize in effects and pedals.
I do. I'm able to help out a little bit with the price guide, some real world sales. But yeah,
right,
good deal.
And your help is immeasurable. Because that's the hardest part for me is the pedals and effects, because this is the most volatile section of the price guide. Stratocasters, the price kind of, it might go up, might go down a little bit. Les Pauls, they go up a little bit, come down a little bit. But man, these pedals, month to month, they go crazy. Sometimes they pop up, to some crazy number, and then another month later, they're down to wherever again.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. It's like trading commodities.
It is. It's really like trading futures. Instead of doing oil or corn, we're talking pedals.
You have to keep a pretty good eye on the market and kind of see what things are doing, see what people are saying. Things can shift because some guy used some pedal on some album, and
it's crazy. And then I couldn't figure out like why certain pedals would just pop out of nowhere. And then I don't know if you told me or somebody told me that Josh Scott, would do a video.
Anything he says will change the market.
And it does. I mean, like, think of that whole, what was that? The monkey?
The bad monkey?
The bad monkey pedal was selling for $1,000, right?
Yeah, that was a wild one. Maybe 6 months ago or something. He did a video on that, comparing it to, I think it was the Klon, of course.
Right.
Or something, and those took off. Now they're back to...
They're back to 200-ish. Yeah.
$125 or so is what I get for them.
And that's the thing is, like, nowadays it's really crazy is that, Grandpa's fuzz pedals are now all $1,000 plus. Do you see that staying like that, or do you think that'll cycle down again or up again? Or
I think the staples will hold their value. That's kind of what we're seeing in the large scope of things. They're holding their value, but
right.
A lot of the more obscure things, we'll get to some of them in the list.
Mm-hmm.
Those are a little bit more volatile. Those will go up and down more with the market.
So tell me a little bit about Boingosuarus Music. When did you start Boingosuarus Music?
Yeah, I've been doing this since I was 12 years old, just going to the guitar shows. I started out playing, and then I was always into effects. And this is about maybe 2004 is when I started. I've been full-time since 2012. I dropped out of college, had nothing better to do, and thought I'd give it a whirl. And I got
here you are.
Yeah.
Amazing. We talked a lot, and we met for the first time in Dallas last year. That was kind of funny. It was like I finally met you after talking to you all these, just talking to you on the phone.
Yeah.
And it was fun. It was just fun to just sit and talk pedals and what's going on. And then
That's one of the best part about those shows. Any listeners that have not had a chance to make it to a guitar show, highly encouraged. It's an incredible experience. It's great to see everyone, see all the old friends like Ram. And
It's amazing to me how many pedals now are being sold at guitar shows. Like almost every aisle has at least one or two pedal guys.
yeah, that's an interesting point. I acquired a lot of competition in the pandemic.
Right. So in the early days, were you just one of just a very few people at guitar shows selling pedals, or was it?
There were just a couple. It was my good friends, the Robot Monster and TL from TLC, and it was those two guys. Those are the big pedal guys, and that was it.
Yep.
Yeah.
And now you walk down the thing. Everybody's got the glass case, and they got the Electro Harmonix array, and they got the and then of course everybody's got tube screamers. Like every single tube screamer. I was like, I didn't know they made that many tube screamers, but everybody seems to have 50 to 60 of them sitting on their on their table.
Yeah, and they all want top dollar.
Yep. And sometimes they get it,
Hey, it's one of those things. If you're looking for it, sometimes you got to pony up.
Yep, exactly. So what I asked you to do is I said, give me a list of the 25 most we always everybody loves these lists. And if you go online, you'll see there's like a lot of people do these. Oh, the 25 most expensive pedals. And then you watch a video from like 4 months ago, it's completely different. You watch a medal. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to the guidebook, what we have, the 2025 price guide. Now, believe it or not, effects and pedals are now the third largest section. There's guitars, amps, and now pedals. Effects now outnumber basses and all the other stuff that comes after that.
Wow.
So effects are now, and like I say, I spend more time doing the effects now than I do basses or anything because there's just such volatility.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to nail these down. There's so many different ones out there.
Tens of thousands of different effects.
Yep.
Yeah, it's a toughie.
Here's something that it's not even in my book. It's not even in the guidebook because I never heard of this thing. And you're telling me right now the most expensive pedal out there is the EMS Synth Hi-Fly.
Yeah, that's right. The EMS Synthi Hi-Fly. It's a gem. It's a peach. If you want to get into a Synthi Hi-Fly today, it will cost you $55,000.
Incredible. Like, what did they make? I think they only made a few hundred of these, right?
Yeah, a few hundred. Their claim to fame is it was used by Gilmour in Dark Side of the Moon. So that's
crazy. In fact, Gilmour has more pedigree as far as knocking prices of pedals up than probably just about anybody.
It's Gilmour, it's Cobain, it's Hendrix, and it's Steve Ray. Those are the big four.
Yeah, they pushed the price up. So this thing, it was made in 1971, I believe, by a guy named David Cockerell.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Cockerell's a big pedal guy back then. He was responsible for a lot of the big designs. I think he worked for Electro Harmonix. Don't quote me on that, but I know he was a big pedal guy, responsible for the design in the heydays in the 60s and 70s. But yeah, he set out to make a guitar synth. It kind of does that.
Mm-hmm. It's just amazing. And so I think even the low end, you'd probably like the cheapest you could get in one of these is like $8,000, right?
Yeah, 8,000. That's a realistic sales number. One I saw sold for that. I would say that's probably what it would cost if you found a good deal on one.
Cool. Well, I guess I'm going to put that in the book, even though I probably never get another sale out of that. Maybe you'll see one. I don't know but we know, I don't think I could put $55,000.
This has been, I've never had one in. It's my holy grail. I just think it's a super cool pedal.
Okay. Since we're talking Gilmour, let's go to the next most expensive pedal out there, and that's the Echo Rec, the Benson Echo Rec, or do we call it the Echo Rec? I don't know how you pronounce it.
No, I'm all online. I don't do a lot of face-to-face, so some of these pronunciations I mess up royally, but I've always pronounced Echo Rec.
Okay, Echo Rec. And so this right here, this is something special. I will see these every once in a while. I know that if you go to a guitar show, you're going to see one, and the person who has it is probably going to ask about $8,000 for it.
Yep.
I don't know if he can get $8,000 for it. Do you think that's what you got to pay now to get a Echo Rec?
I think if it's very clean, all original stuff like that, then that's a fair price for it. But they are bringing quite a bit of money, even used beat ones,
Mm-hmm. And it's important to point out, this thing it recorded to a drum recorder, not a tape loop. This isn't a tape loop. This is a little drum thing that spins around. So I know the maintenance on these things must be horrendous.
Right. Yeah, you run into the same deal as you do with Echoplexes. They require maintenance to keep them sounding right. And so it's just like an old car. It takes some money to keep up and rolling.
Mm-hmm. And of course, Gilmore, I mean, we all have seen, I think it's in that, maybe that movie Live at Pompeii where he's sitting there playing through that Echo Rick.
Right.
And everybody wants that sound, man.
Yep. A lot of these pedals we'll talk about, and this goes for vintage, kind of like what you asked me earlier about your granddad's pedal. These vintage units are made with components that are no longer sourceable. They're obsolete. So they really do have a one-of-a-kind tone. And if you were looking for that tone and you were a purist and you want to sound like Gilmore, it's got to be, you're going to have to. It's
got to be that. The thing is, it's pretty funny too. Like the earliest pedals, they lost favor when the Boss small packaging came about, where all of a sudden you could put together a rack mount, full of pedals.
Sure.
You couldn't put these big giant things on there anymore.
Exactly.
And that's when these things kind of got put in shelves and tossed and people saw them in garage sales or whatnot. But man, you talk about these pedals now, can't get them. Everybody wants them and you're looking for that sound,
Yep. I mean, it's really true, that sound. And it'll vary from unit to unit, of course, but it'll get you there. And that's why these are bringing the big bucks.
Yep. And I also, in the book, Guild also marketed one, right?
Right. That's correct. Yeah. It was like just it was built by Benson, marketed by Guild brand name. And those bring a little bit less.
Right.
But you'll get, if you're on a budget, go buy a Guild one.
Mm-hmm. But it's the same thing, right? It almost looks the same.
Yeah. Different branding.
Okay. Now we go to the third. This would normally be the number one, but we brought in the other two because people do look for them and pay a lot of money for them.
Yep.
But of course, then you get this Klon. And boy, you could write a whole PhD thesis on this Klon, couldn't you?
Yes, it's it.
It is. And, people say to you, well, you're just an elitist. They always say, oh, the clones are just as good. But you and I know the truth, don't we?
Yeah. I'm going to get a little snooty here. The Klon's it. I mean, nothing sounds like a Klon. We're pricing out the Gold Horsey version, right?
Yeah, we'll start with the Gold Horsey.
Those bring the big bucks. I've seen real early ones sell for up to 10,000, but realistically, 6 to 8.
Yeah, I think in the book I have them 6 to 7.
7, yeah.
And that was because this year somebody just sold like an entire lot of them. Remember somebody?
Yeah, I remember that.
Somebody sold like, I don't know, they had 10 Gold Horseys, or maybe they were just all a bunch of different Klons, but
yeah, I think it was different ones.
Different ones. But that kind of like, I couldn't let that sway me because the average price paid was about $6,000. Realistically, you're still going to spend about $7,000 on one of these Klons. And I don't know, I admit that I have one and I bought it 10 years ago when it was about $1,200. And I remember thinking, God, this was stupid. But then I played through it. And I'm like, holy cow. I had nothing that was as transparent and clean as that. I didn't have to crank my vintage amps anymore. I could play through this thing.
Yep.
And then they made what was called the Red Box that came about 10 years ago. And I wound up using I was going to bring the Horsey on stage, but I played the Red Box on stage.
Do you like the Red Box?
I liked it, but it isn't the same.
I really dislike the Red Box.
Okay, so I'm not making this up in my head.
No, I'm a snooty. I've played dozens of Klons, and they all sound great. Now, if we're talking about difference between the silver and Gold Horsey versions, it's very, very minimal.
Mm-hmm.
But the difference between any Klon and a KTR, I think, is vast.
Yeah. Okay, so I wasn't just making that up in my head like, God, this doesn't sound,
No. I appreciate that he made it a little bit more accessible, but if you're hoping for a Klon tone by buying a KTR, I would say you may be disappointed.
In your opinion, what clone gets you closest?
It's a good question. I think the right answer to that is there are different clones that do different features of the Klon well. For instance, the J-Rocket Archer does the clean portion of the Klon quite well, but the overdrive, it's not great. So I really like that one for the overdrive portion. The Soul Food does an okay, it's a $60 pedal. It does an okay driven portion of the Klon. But even some of the just made in China clones, the Centura, I can't think of all the knockoff names, even some that don't even have a brand. Those aren't terrible.
Right.
If you're trying to get a Klon tone, spend $100 on a made in China clone and you'll get.
That's good. And you could even put the goop over it, in the circuit just to.
Sure. Yeah.
I don't know if people know that. Like they were so protective of that circuit, they literally gooped the top of it so you couldn't copy it.
Right. And it worked.
And it worked because nobody could make it. Nobody can make it.
Expensive. Yeah. Unfortunately, we haven't run into any issues where some pedals, they'll all break after 10 years, but the Klon's still going strong. You don't have
Yeah,
to
but it's only been around since the 90s. So,
yeah.
there are different versions of the Klon. We talked about the Horsey. It was going to be about 6.5, maybe 7K.
Mm-hmm.
So then you get to a gold that doesn't have the Horsey on it. They call it just the gold.
Mm-hmm.
How much did that one cost?
Those are a bit more. I would say, just off the top of my head, maybe $4,000 to $5,000. Yeah.
And then the silver, which is one I see the most in the marketplace.
Yep, those are the most common.
And that one costs about how much?
Those will run you $3,000 to $4,000.
So between me, you, and the world here, if you're looking for that Klon sound, the silver, pony up.
Oh, yeah.
Pony up for the silver.
Yeah.
It's going to get you so close, and it's going to be
Yeah.
head and shoulders above anything that comes under it.
Exactly. I would definitely agree with that. If you're just in the market for a Klon, you can't go wrong with the silver one.
Right. And do you think that silver one will ever be 5, 6K?
Sure. If things keep going up like they're going up.
Yeah, exactly. I think you have more chance of that being, drop or doubling than you do the gold Horsey going up double again.
Yeah. I've yet to see prices for Klons ever drop. So
I know that there's a number. Everybody knows. Everybody keeps track. Actually, mine is the last serial number with the Horsey.
Well, how about
the one that came after mine? It was just a gold. So mine was the very last serial. I can't remember the serial number off my top of my head, but I remember looking at the print book, and I'm like, oh, wow, I got lucky.
Yeah.
I got lucky on that one.
Yeah.
So
it's those little bits of novelty that can add a little bit to the price.
All right. So now we go to the fourth most expensive pedal in the world. And this is a Hendrix pedal, man. It's the Fuzz Face.
Is it?
The Dallas Arbiter Fuzz Face. Now, you're going to pay, I don't know, you could pay quite a bit. 5K, 7K, 3K, 4K. I mean, it just depends. The earliest ones have the NKT 275 in it. Tell me about that.
Yeah, and that's an important thing to distinguish here is that the ones that bring the big bucks have the NKT 275 transistor. So it's a germanium transistor. It was used in the earliest Fuzz Faces. So the ones Hendrix used.
Right. And it's important to point out that those transistors are very, very finicky.
Yes.
They're not like the silicon transistors that come afterwards that are very stable.
Right.
These earliest ones, germaniums, are very unstable. So it is true, this is absolutely true, that Hendrix would go through a box of Fuzz Faces until he found one that worked, that he liked.
And you could a box of these Fuzz Faces and they'll all sound different.
Right. And it depends. You might be in a place that's hot. That thing is not going to sound right. It's going to be really cold. It's not going to sound right. And you cannot get these transistors anymore. That's why these particular fuzzes with these old NKT 275s are just premium. You're paying well over $1,000 for these things now.
Yeah. Depending on the color and transistors and how it sounds and everything. Yeah. An original NKT Fuzz Face from 67 to 69 will easily run you $4,000 to $7,000.
And now here's a secret. I don't know if people know this. Analog Man has a sun face. He makes a sun face where he does use NKT 275s. He still had them. And they're called the white dots. And those are about $1,500. And that gets you real close to that sound.
Yeah, it'll get you good. And Analog Man always does it right, man.
Yep.
He's the guy. The original ones used a red dot transistor. A little bit different. But yeah, the transistors, you can't find them.
So if you find a red dot, that's better than a white dot?
I would say red dots sound more like what we're going for and trying to emulate.
Mm-hmm. Now, it's important to point out that these Fuzz Faces, I don't know if we get to them again in our top 25, but certainly that earliest ones, they could be gray, black, or red.
Right.
It doesn't matter the color as long as it's got the NKT 275 in it, right?
Yeah.
Although, would you rather have the gray?
I'd rather have a red one.
Or a red one, okay.
I think the red one's a little bit more iconic. They tend to bring a little bit more money.
So the red is the preferred one?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay. What color did Hendrix use?
I don't know.
I thought he used the gray, but I don't know. That's black and white pictures.
Right to me.
So I don't know. Somebody will correct us.
Gray or black.
Yeah. So yeah, it probably was black because you always see that picture of his array there. His very limited array of pedals.
Yeah.
How the hell could Hendrix have stand? It didn't have true bypass. I mean, how could he have stood that? No, I'm sorry, I'm joking.
How do you live without bypass?
What's that?
How could we live before bypass?
I know. That was a big selling thing about 10 years ago. True bypass. And I'm like, well, how the hell did Hendrix even survive? He didn't have true bypass. So, and then next come on that list is a Tycho Brahe Octavia 70s version.
Yeah.
That thing, it's hard to find them. I'm always looking for those. In fact, if you ever find one, call me. If you found a nice one, an Octavia, a real one, what would you have to pay for that now?
At least 3,500.
35.
Yeah.
And are those very variable as well, or they all sound the same? Or are they completely different?
No, they're so rare. I've only had one or two in.
Mm-hmm.
My recollection is that there wasn't a lot of variance between the units, but they did sound different.
Mm-hmm.
It is a one-of-a-kind tone.
I know that everybody makes a version of that now. What does anybody come close to that?
I haven't heard anything that sounds like an original Octavia.
Yeah, me neither. I know that Full Tone had something that was kind of close.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Okay. Let's move on. Here's something that was on your list that you sent me. It was called the Fringe Logo Pro Rat.
Yeah, the Proco Rat Fringe logo. I'm glad we get to talk about this one because this is one of those highly priced, volatile things that I didn't even know they were bringing this much money.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the Proco Rat, the original.
Is this the same as the large box?
Yes and no. It's in the same enclosure.
Okay.
But the Fringe logo rat was only made in 1978. The rat logo has like some little fringes on it on the T.
Mm-hmm.
Like it looked like it's kind of flying. And the filter pot will be labeled tone instead of filter.
Oh.
So it has a little bit of a different aesthetic. I'm not quite sure what components they use differently. It still has the LM308 IC, but it does sound a lot more raw, sputtery,
mm-hmm.
and just kind of in your face than the later large box rat from 79 to 81 when they started using the filter knob and stuff. Those all sound great too.
Now you told me that somebody paid $4,000 for one of these.
That's right. I saw more than one in that price range.
$4,000. That's not in the book. I'm going to put that in the book, even though it's I think they only made like 35 or something like that of them.
Yeah. So it's the Fringe logo from 78. There's a lot of variants in those. And if you have one that says tone instead of filter, you're sitting on some money.
Cool. Somebody check out, Grandpa's little tool shed there. He might have it sitting in there. It was weird. Proco, the rat, that was kind of like a thing. You could get those pretty cheap. I'm actually surprised that people are paying over $500 now for the large box ones.
Yeah. Yeah. They bring it all day. Even the little small white face ones from the 80s,
mm-hmm.
they'll bring bucks. Pretty interesting. I don't know of anyone off the top of my head. There's no famous rat user like there is with the fuzz faces or any of these pedals that we've been talking about so far.
Right.
But they're just a good old fashioned.
Yeah, I think all the LA bands used to use those Pro Rats. I remember all the LA bands used to.
I love them. They're great.
Yeah.
They're just, you can do anything with them. Anything dirt related.
Yeah. And now the next pedal
mm-hmm.
is one that, gosh, I'm going to kick myself in the rear end. How many times did you walk by and see a Univibe sitting on a table and you just said, I don't know, those are problematic. But those original Univibes, I guess they were made by Cheney. They were made by, I don't know, Honey, Univox.
Yep.
Are they all the same?
All the same, just different brand names. Kind of like the deal with the Echo Rec. Cheney was the manufacturer.
Mm-hmm.
And they produced them for Univibe and they produced them for Honey.
Crazy. Even 10 years ago, you could get these for nothing. Now you're going to pay $3,500 at least, right?
Yeah, that seems to be about what they're going for. This is another Hendrix pedal.
Yep. Hendrix used it. I think most of us knew Robin Trower with that Univibe. Like for my playing, I emulated Robin Trower with the Univibe.
Yeah, and they sound pretty good. I've played quite a few. They're pretty subtle effects, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of courses you buy are super modulated, super, whooshy. The Univibe's a pretty modest, subtle, usable
mm-hmm.
effect.
I like them. I know that I use a full tone version of the Univibe.
Yeah.
That's the same thing. It's just there. You're not going to get a Leslie. It's not like you have a Leslie speaker there just spinning around. But we like them. My band, we loved Univibes. In fact, mm-hmm. I think our first record label that we started was called Univibe Garden. That was the name of our first record label we started.
Wow. That's pretty...
It doesn't exist anymore because we couldn't sell anything.
So it goes.
And there's a shout out to you, Richard Chavez. We'll get it going someday again, believe me. And then we get to the Range Master. Now, this right here, I would love to find an old Range Master, but these are $3,000, right?
Yeah, if you can find an old one.
Yeah, and you got to get the old one.
You got to get the old one, and you got to take it apart to know, and you got to know what you're looking for, because a lot of the old ones turn out to be not old.
Yeah. I know that everybody wants this Range Master. I think that was when you think of Clapton, you think of that sound, the Beano sound.
Absolutely.
It's that Range Master. People don't realize that Range Master with the treble boost was a huge part of that tone.
Absolutely.
Yep. And that, like I say, about $3,000 if you get a real one, $3,000 to $4,000. And
yeah,
They're out there. I do see a lot of them out there, but you got to be careful because the ones you see online, there's things been done to them. They're not right.
Yeah.
They're not correct.
Yeah, it's very, very careful. Make sure it has the OC44s, the right board, right components, everything's dating out right. For whatever reason, it seems like the enclosures were readily available, and
people gutted them and screwed around with the inside. All right, so the next most expensive thing is this thing by Honey called the Psychedelic Machine. If you can find this, boy, oh boy, are you going to love it.
Yep.
$3,000 to $5,000.
Yep. Worth every penny.
Yep.
This is an incredible effect. This is another one made by Shanae for Honey. The Psychedelic Machine puts the Super Fuzz and I think it's the Univibe in one.
Yep. All in one enclosure.
So like save some money and
just buy a Psychedelic Machine, you get all three.
If you can find one. I've only seen one.
Yeah.
And it's my buddy Stevens.
Oh.
Yeah.
I should call him. Nah, I'm joking.
Yeah.
I don't need another pedal like a hole in the head. Ibanez. And the next one is this thing called a Visual Super Product SK10.
Yeah.
Never knew these existed until I talked to you, or maybe it was you, and you said, have you seen the price on these things? They're crazy.
Yeah.
So what the heck is going on? What is this thing, this SK10?
I've never had one. I don't know what it does. I only know they're expensive because there's like 5 of them or something.
Right. And of course,
they bring a ton of money.
It's another Josh Scott thing. I think he said, if you can find this, it's the rarest pedal.
Is it really?
Something.
Okay.
I think he said it was like the rarest pedal ever. And it's got little Japanese writing on it. It only has 3 dials. Nobody's quite sure what it does. So if you got one, let us know.
Yeah, if you got one, for you, congratulations.
Yeah, let us know.
If you want to buy one, maybe think twice about it.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll talk about some of these Ibanez boxes later. And then the next thing, just to finish off this list here, we got the Zonk Machine and then the Zonk Shatter Box. These were done by Hornby. These are now $3,000-4,000.
Yeah.
These are great. I guess they're just fuzz pedals, right?
Yep. John Horsby SKUs, the OG JHS, making JHS pedals in the 70s. He made the Zonk Machine and the Shatterbox, among others. And those are just some of the most killer fuzz pedals you can possibly find.
Even better than the stuff that came around that same time? The ones that people pay a lot of money for?
Different.
Like the tone benders and stuff like that?
Different.
Okay.
When you're into this area, it's more personal preference. And you know what I mean? Yeah. I would describe the Zonk and the Shatterbox closer to a Super Fuzz than a tone bender.
Okay. Interesting. Now, let me just add, that's just an aside. People buy these things, but are they actually using them, or are they just putting them in their man cave on a shelf to show everybody they have this thing?
God, I hope they're using them. I hope they're being used, but a lot of people are just buying it and putting it away. And I guess from a collectability standpoint, that's the move. And
do these things have like a bathtub curve where after about so many years they don't work anymore? You have to completely gut them, or?
Some do. Kind of like we were talking about with Klons earlier. I guess that remains to be seen, but so far so good. Yeah, some pedals will just kick the can after 20, 25 years.
Yeah, especially the ones that have the old germanium transistors. They get kind of, I don't know. I would think that those would be susceptible to more issues.
Yeah, and if you are going to have to get into one of those, you hope to God you won't have to replace the transistors.
Right. Is it okay to replace the capacitors in these old circuits?
Generally, yeah. They have some say on the tone. Unless you're listening real closely and have a real pure ear, you can tell. But a lot of times you need to. It's just one of those parts that fails after 50 years, and you have to do it in order for the pedal to work. Yeah,
and I know touching the transistors is a big no-no, but I know that sometimes these caps, you gotta. It's just like an amp; they need a cap job. And as long as you're careful, you're not going to totally devalue that thing completely.
Get a good repair guy. I know that's harder said than done.
Yeah,
but.
The official Vintage Guitar Magazine 2025 price guide has partnered with 33 of the top guitar dealers in the industry to provide the most accurate values for thousands of models. This includes electric guitars, acoustic guitars, basses, amplifiers, effects, mandolins, and banjos. Whether your instrument is an investment or simply a piece you enjoy playing, it's always helpful to know what it's worth. If you're checking out a guitar at your local shop and want to know its value before making the purchase, this guide is your go-to source for all the details. Available in both print and digital editions, you can have the guide right at your fingertips no matter where you go. Use code BUYGUITAR25 to receive 15% off the 2025 price guide when purchased directly from www.vintageguitar.com. Offer expires February 25th, 2025.
Here's something on the list. It comes next. And I didn't know this. I don't even have it in my book. It's the Rockman XPR guitar preamp.
Yeah.
So that's a rack mount thing, isn't it?
It's rack mount.
So these rack mounts aren't not all of them are doorstops now. There are some that are still being used.
Yeah, that's right. This is a full rack from Rockman. Most of the stuff he did was half rack size, and this is it's a full rack, and it does it all. If you want to sound like Boston,
hey, some people do.
A lot of people do. Rockman, it's just a super cool 80s in a box, you know.
So people are really paying $3,000 to $4,000 for this thing?
Yeah, it's many that price range.
Wow. So let's take a little side ramp here and talk about Rockman.
Sure.
When I was in the Navy, I had a little Rockman. You know, you go to the Guitar Center and you bought it for $100, and that was because a lot of times you couldn't play without somebody throwing a pillow at you or screaming at you. So you had your little headphones on and you'd be sitting in the back lounge playing with your Rockman, and that was like, I don't know, that was just like a total thing. Are Rockman still people using them still?
Hell yeah. A lot of people are using the headphone amps not for headphone amps. They're using it just as an effects processor.
Because you do get a very unique, crunchy tone out of that.
Absolutely. Like that thing, you can only sound like Boston. You have no choice but to sound like Boston. That's all it does. That's, you know what I mean? Like it's great. It does really modulated chorus, a real subtle echo, and a nice overdrive, those headphone amps.
So you guys go out there and check your garage. You might have an XPR rack mount leaned up against a tire somewhere. Hey, it's worth $3,000 or $4,000 now. So.
And anything Rockman's at least $500. So
at least that's crazy now. Now here's another thing that shows up on the list that you sent me. The next item is called it's the violet ram's head muff.
Yeah, very cool.
So this is the ram's head, but it's got violet print. The printing is violet.
They call it violet. Some are violet, but they have different colors as well. This is one version of the second edition Ram's Head Big Muff Pie that they released. They made different colors: violet, blue, black, and red. And the little lamb on the bottom right corner is going to have a filled-in circle of color, and that's how you tell that it's one of those. If it's red,
and that's a 25. You say it's $2,500 to $4,000 for the violet.
Easily, and that is one sought after by tone purists, because whatever. They did something different. I'm not sure exactly what components they used in this limited variation from the standard Ram's Head Big Muff. But man, all of these violet ones definitely sound different. They have their own Big Muff flavor.
And you're talking $2,500. That's a lot of money for an overdrive pedal, but that's kind of like what things are for those.
They've been holding it.
Let's kind of dip down like low. So now the actual Ram's Head, because I think that's one of my favorite fuzz pedals.
They're great.
And I like the Ram's Head. I don't like the triangle the one that came before it.
Sure.
Is that common?
Yeah, I'd say the market is reflecting that.
So you'll pay more for the Ram's Head that was the second version.
Yeah, same, about the same, or a little bit more depending on condition.
And that's just do you know what they changed in that pedal to make it more valuable?
Offhand, I'm not sure what components they changed. I'm sure the transistors, but it's the Ram's Head is a much more full throaty.
I think that's the one that most of us know. Like when you hear records with somebody's using when they talked about the Big Muff, it's really that Ram's Head version that people really, really know.
I'm with you because the triangle ones seem to be just a little bit sputterier to me.
But they came out with many versions afterwards. Grunge is, of course, when you think of grunge music, you think of the Ram's Head, not the Ram's Head, but the Muff. What version were they using? Like a lot of those early 90s bands.
I'd say probably anywhere from the version 3 to version 6. So,
but you can get those for pretty good money. They're not going to be $1,200.
No. Version 3 is sell about $400 or $500. Version 6 is sell for about $300.
So if somebody's is looking for a big muff, what do you tell them to go? Where the Ram's Head and just suck it up and just pay the $1,200?
It depends on what they're looking for, honestly. Version 6 will get you 90% of the way there for $300. But if you're really, if you want to record with it, play out with it, and you want that real deal tone, then you got to get a Ram's Head.
Now there's something that has really jumped in price is the Sovtek version that Mike made in Russia. How much those now? They come in the wooden box. They have to come in the wooden box.
In the wooden box.
How much are those costing now?
The very first version, after he went out of business in the U.S. and started his second chapter in Russia, he released a big muff, but he called it the Red Army, and that barely missed our list. But those are bringing 2,400 now, and those are very scarce.
Wow.
But after that, he went back to the Big Muff branding, and he made those army green Big Muff versions. One's called the Bubble font, one's called Tall font, based on the fonts they used on the enclosure, and those will bring $400 to $500.
Wow.
Later, made in Russia version, it's black with yellow lettering, and those will bring about $100.
Wow. Now we keep going down. Now we get to another fuzz face, but this is the one that has the BC 108s in them.
183s, just all of the other transistors he used. I think it's safe.
So you're still going to pay. You're going to pay about $2,500 for this, right?
Yeah.
And these are the red ones, right?
Red ones.
68, 1969.
Yeah. Those will be about 25 to 3. Yeah.
Again, they're stable. They'll have a better shot of finding one that sounds the same to another one that's from that same era compared to the earlier ones.
I would say so, but I still would say a lot of variance.
Yep.
More so than most vintage pedals.
Yeah. Right.
Variance unit, of course.
And then after that, now we're going down the list. The Rangemaster Fuzzbug 66, $2,500.
Yeah, I've never seen one. So
never seen one.
That's how rare that was.
And I'm not going to talk about the Fender Reverb unit, but if you can get a hold of that blonde Tolex with the Oxblood grill, that's a $2,500 device now.
Yeah,
it's a good. I think they all sound the same. I don't know if from year to year the reverb units change, but if you're going for reverb, this is where you got to go. Real reverb, real spring reverb.
Tube.
You're not.
Tube.
Yep, tube. You're not going to get this from a pedal, although they make reverb pedals. It's not going to happen. And then of course, then we keep going down. We can go to the Solus Sound tone benders. These are $2,500 to $4,000. Sometimes you're going to be paying about $2,500 for these.
Yep, these ones they're unobtainium, man.
Yep, unobtainium. Yep. That's the word for that rare transistor.
Yeah, they're hard to find.
And then next on this list, I don't even know what number we're on. We're probably way past 25, but it's something that I could kick myself in the rear end for not buying when I saw it. It was the bag.
You've seen one? You've seen one.
I've seen one. I saw one and I didn't buy it because I was like, what the hell am I going to do with that thing?
Where'd you see it?
Like at a swap meet, the Orange County swap meet.
That's incredible.
That was like 1980, in the 80s.
Yeah.
I thought it was a Boda bag or something. And the guy's like, no, man, it's a custom amp thing. Whatever. But nowadays, you're going to pay an arm and a leg for that thing, aren't you?
You are, because there were only 100 of them built. So the custom to bag is the first talk box ever produced commercially. It's just a driver inside of like a padded, psychedelic-looking pouch, and it looks. Peter Frampton used it.
Yep.
Used it. There are only 100 made. They'll bring 2,500 if you can find.
I know I saw one somewhere and it was like crazy, and I was like, wow, I should have bought the one I saw back when I was a teenager. Of course, Of course, there's a lot of shoulda, woulda, coulda.
There's a lot. I'm sure. We may hear a lot of that from the audience listening to this list together. And
then the next one, I'll just go down the list here, and then is the Moog MF 104 MSD.
Yep. So this is a newer pedal, which is kind of cool because we've only been talking about old stuff. This is just the Moog MF 104M delay, but this is the super delay, hence the SD. It has a little bit longer delay time than the MF 104, but other than that, it's your bog standard Moog delay. Moog.
But why are they so expensive?
I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe limited numbers, I would assume. Yeah. But I've never had one in, so I can't say on how they sound, but they're bringing the dollars and they're selling for that. So
we could blame the usual suspect, I guess. The suspect. Now we get to the next one on this list is the Mootron Flanger, $2,300. Those are cool. They're
very cool. They're really rare and they sound just amazing. Just the best flanger. It's my favorite flanger.
Yeah, I think, and you think of all that great 70s stuff, I guess Frank Zappa was a big Mootron guy, right? He was. Yeah.
Just super thick, super whirly, but it's also usable. I can't modulation pedals that are just so modulated that it just sounds weird, but the Mootron Flanger is super. It plays friendly with other pedals. it's a great unit.
All Mutron stuff it's very colorful, very gorgeous. It's very great, and it's all expensive now.
Yep.
But they're a lot of fun, you know, if you want to do like another Pink Floyd type of stuff, or a lot of that or that all the progressive bands used all these Mutron pedals, and boy, they just added so much flavor and color, you know.
Really, they really do. Get into Mutron stuff if you're not into it, because all of that sounds one of a kind, and it's good stuff.
Is this Roland RE201, man? Big bucks now, $2,100.
Yep. Those have gone up quite a lot.
Yeah.
Sometime in the pandemic and now, those have about doubled in price.
And what exactly are they? I know you can get a bunch of RE. Roland made a bunch of these things, but why is this one special?
I think this one's special because it doesn't have all the bells and whistles. It's just kind of your standard tape echo, kind of like we talked about with the Echo Plexus and the Echo Rex. The Roland Echo just uses like a spool of loose tape in a box. It never gets tangled. It never gets knocked out, like knocked around, like the drum in the Echo Rec does, or the little tape reel on the Echo Plex does. A lot more gigging musician friendly.
Right. But Roland you think of like the Roland amps too. They're all solid state. You're not going to have issues.
All Roland is just top notch for reliability.
Yep. Now, I don't think we have Echoplexes on this list just because I didn't go. I think we stop at about $2,200. But Echoplexes, man, those are cool.
They are cool.
How much do you got to pay for an Echoplex these days?
Echoplex is EP3, maybe $1,200.
That's the one that's got the tube, or is that the
that's solid state?
Solid state.
Tube one a little more, 18 to 24, depending on condition. And
how do you maintain these things? Like I know so many people that have them, but they don't work.
Right.
What do you do? Is there an Echoplex repairman out there somewhere?
Yeah, there are. I don't have one that I can shout out, unfortunately, because Echoplexes have so much go wrong with them. I kind of quit buying them. But you have to keep the heads clean. You have to keep the rollers clean. You got to keep the tape reel.
Yeah, I just know that they're just the maintenance is just. And I know like a lot of people that do use the Echo machines, the tape machines, they like that they go for the full tone one because I think that one's newer and less maintenance required.
Yep. That's another one that barely missed our list. Those are bringing about 2,000 now.
Wow.
That one I didn't see coming. But yeah, that's pretty crazy.
I like anything full tone just because, and I'll tell you the truth is when the Psychedelic Mooj was starting out, we opened for Robin Trower, and I basically looked at his everything he had there on the pedal board. Well, it wasn't a pedal board; it was just a pedals strung together. And I took a napkin and I wrote down on there like what he had for I didn't know like he put I always had my positions the wrong way and I wrote what he wrote and he was all full tone, and after that I was full tone.
Wow.
My overdrive has always been the OCD. Let's talk about the OCD.
Okay.
People, how much do you have to pay to get the most desirable OCD right now?
The most desirable, I would say that in quotes, just because they're the scarcest. Version 1, 2, and 3, they all bring about $250 to $300.
Okay.
And those are the first maybe 15,500 full tone OCDs produced. And the variances between the versions 1, 2, and 3, but they're just the earliest ones. There's only, roughly 5,000 of each version. So a lot more scarce than the version 1.4 and on.
I think mine's a 1.4, I think.
Okay. Yeah. That's the most common.
Yeah. And that was like, I bought that, I think 2008, something like that. And then, back then you couldn't get them. That was very hard to find full tone stuff. It was still boutique-y. You had to kind of, they weren't selling it at Guitar Center, in other words.
Right.
Another overdrive that's going for big bucks that you were telling me was this, the Texas Squareface made by Diaz.
Oh yeah, those are great. Those are one that people have really latched onto in the last 5 to 10 years. So the Cesar Diaz Squareface. Cesar Diaz was the guitar amp tech for Stevie Ray Vaughan. And so he actually built his line of pedals for Stevie. He built a Tremodillo, which is a tremolo, a Texas Ranger, which is a treble booster, and a Squareface, which is a fuzz. And he gooped the circuits. He covered them up, so we don't know what's in there. Were
they all signed by Diaz? Did he sign them all?
He signed most of the ones that he built, but most of the ones you'll see now were built after he passed away. And after he passed away, Peter McMahon of Homestead Amps took over building Diaz pedals. So those are still bringing some money, but
Not like the originals.
not like the originals. If you got one signed by Diaz, that's the real deal.
You gonna pay
And
over
those,
2,000 for it?
I've seen some go for that much. They pulled back a little bit in the last year or two, but over $1,000 easy.
Yeah, nice. Since we're talking overdrive, let's talk about the overdrive that everybody must have in their life, which I don't have, and that's the Tube Screamer.
Okay.
Do you have to have the 808?
No.
No.
This is an interesting conversation. Everything Tube Screamer boils down to the IC that's my opinion. Tonally, it boils down to the IC. So like you could take a TS9 with a 4558D IC, and it'll sound almost exactly the same as an 808 with the same IC.
Mm-hmm.
But the 808s are all going to sound great. They're all going to have the same components. But now when we're talking differences between the TS9 and the 808s, you can get some of that 808 tone with the TS9. You just have to find an old one with the right chip. Because some of I can buy a 1983 TS9 with the same exact chip that they're putting in TS9s today, right? So that's going to sound okay, but that's not going to sound like a 808. It's gonna sound much more like a modern issue.
Like the original 808s, are they functional still?
Yes. Yeah.
So people I know that big square kick or the punch button. Those people sometimes those things don't work anymore.
Yeah, talking all those Ibanez stuff. The fatal flaw is the switch, which is in the big scheme of things isn't a big deal. It's not going to change the tone or anything. Most of them, if you just clean up the switch with some deoxit or whatever, take it out and give it clean, it'll work without having to replace it. Or worst case, you just replace it, and those are readily available and it's an easy thing. But Ibanez made good stuff. Most of it's still alive and kicking.
Yep, and it's people collect they want all the Ibanez pedals.
Right.
There was another. Was it Maxon that also made the pedals? Same pedals?
Yes. Yep. Same era. Same.
Are they worth more or are they worth less?
They're worth less.
And why is that? They're rarer.
I don't know the answer to that.
I think it's just because you want an Ibanez. You want that Ibanez on there.
Yeah, I mean,
people don't know that Maxon was Ibanez.
Probably like the exact same as an Ibanez 808, but yeah, there's a difference in price, and people want the Ibanez one.
Yeah.
So,
and then another thing that kind of struck me was that the tube driver is worth a lot of money now.
The BK.
Yeah, the BK Butler ones.
Those are pretty great. He's still making them, so the price is a little capped. We can't get more than what they're selling for new, but yeah, I mean, they'll bring $250 to $300 all day. An original 80s one, I've gotten up to 700s for them.
Wow. I just remember those. They were just big. You had to plug them in. I don't think you could you had to physically plug them in. So
right. Power cord, not pedal board friendly.
Yep. So let's talk about let's talk about the whole the way these things evolved. So we start out in the 60s, can't get no satisfaction, pumps through. People now all of a sudden want that fuzz, Maestro fuzz on everything. But
yeah, just different.
Yep. And so all of a sudden, you get to that's kind of like where the 60s, at the end of the 60s, everybody's got fuzz, everybody's got overdrive, everybody's got this and that. But it was bigger, the boxes themselves were big. Everything changes about when was it that Boss started making pedals?
They started making small pedals in the 1979.
Okay, so
late.
Do you think that's when everything changes and all of a sudden the big pedals kind of go out of favor?
Oh, that's a good question. I don't know. Electro-Harmonix was experimenting with some smaller enclosures back then. MXR had smaller enclosures back then.
Right. MXR, we didn't even talk about that. That Phase 90.
Yeah.
What a great pedal. And one of the originals now, those are like $400, aren't they?
Easily.
And they're heavy as a brick,
Yeah.
You can't. Yeah. But those things, I mean, when you buy a new reissue and you play an original, what they call script logo, there's like such a difference.
Yep.
You got to have the original stuff. The original MXR stuff that's premium stuff.
It really is.
So they might have actually been making the small pedals before Boss then.
Yeah, I think they were.
And the colors, and that kind of like where all of a sudden everything was color coded and you got, now you got to get one of everything. And, I think that's a brilliant idea. I think of like when I was playing through, in the early days, you wanted to buy as many effect boxes as you could. And they were $45. You don't even know what they did most of the time. You just, that's a pretty color. I'll take that one home.
That was a fling. Yeah.
Yeah. And but today there's like people that collect Boss. Like they want to have every single Boss pedal And our buddy Bruce Lee, remember that he had this?
Yeah, Bruce Lee, he did it.
He did it. And I was talking to him in Dallas, and he said that he had to pay more for the boxes than for some of the pedals, because in order to be a really good effects pedal collector, you got to have the box, original box, and if you can get the box candy that comes with it, the stickers. You don't want the Velcro stickers on the bottom. You know, people used to always put the Velcro stickers on the bottom. But yeah, that and I think, I don't know if we can say this out loud, what he paid. Somebody bought that off of him, that collection.
Yeah, I don't know. Good, because I don't even know that's like, I don't know.
I was told $75,000.
It's a crazy number, but it's a lot of work that went into getting all.
Yes, and the amount of work, and he was telling me, like, you know, like he was pointing out the ones that I can get this pedal, but I can't get the box. I had to pay more for that box. And I always found, like, Boss pedals, that's a collection, boy. Can you imagine that's what you're going to collect? And I think more people collect Boss, like they want to get every single Boss pedal.
It's ambitious.
And I guess the most expensive Boss is the CE1.
I would say
Ensemble. Is that the one that people had to pay over $800 for, or $900?
They've pulled back in the last few months. I'd put the price guide range from $600 to $900.
Oh, so that's a good.
But the only reason I know is I was trying to buy one a couple weeks ago, and I was like, I can't make as much as I thought I could on this one. But it's the most expensive Boss pedal that's like you see for sale. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. It's not like super duper rare. I'd say the CE1, and that brings some big bucks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now the one that all of us know is the OD1. That was my first overdrive pedal. That was probably everybody's first overdrive pedal, because that was the first. That was the that when I think of overdrive, I had this little rolling cube amp, and I needed something to make it a little dirty. And the cheapest thing at that time was the OD1. But these OD1s, they go for big bucks now, don't they?
Yeah, $300 to $400.
And then there's this thing called a slow gear. What the hell does that do? The SG1.
No, you're kidding. It does its own thing. It's like volume swells.
I think Bruce was telling me that was the hardest one to find in the box or something. I think that's what he told me. Or I don't know.
It's tough to. They bring big bucks just because they're rare. They're not particularly usable. I would like to know the thought process of, like, let's make this a pedal, man, of the box. Like, let's make this a sweet pedal. But it does its own thing, and once you get the hang of it, it can do some, like, kind of cool, volume swelling in and out. But it's more of a collector piece than something you're going to slap on your board.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about DoD pedals? Are they ever going to be like the Boss pedals?
No, I don't think so.
I know that, a lot of people will pay a lot of money for that gray box preamp 250.
Oh, yeah, that one's cool. Yeah, the original gray box 250s will bring $600, $700. Those are cool. Ingve used them, and they sound good. Mm-hmm. But for our DoD kind of was aiming for the same segment of the market as Boss.
They didn't really get there, did they?
But they kind of cheaped out. So most of the old DoD pedals, they're gonna have scratchy pots, busted switches. There's just gonna be a little bit. You can tell they're a 30, 40-year-old pedal.
Mm-hmm. In my garage, I used to buy all these pedals when I was in the Navy. My wife was the other day, she was like going through the garage cleaning it, and she found all my Digitech pedals. And she says, "What am I going to do with these things?" I said, "Just throw them away." They said, "No, wait, no, not yet. Let me go look at the guide." And because that was a big, for a while there, Digitech became the go-to. It was because you could get the chorus and the flanger. You could get the this and that. You could get the digital delay. That was like one of the first digital. I think I was one of the first digital delays you could really get. Right.
You're talking about the big wide 2-button.
Yeah, the doubles.
Yeah. Those I think were. Those overlapped a little bit with DoD somehow.
Right. I just remember, that was like I could get more for my money, because the thing was, I don't know how much I paid for this thing, about $120, I think, new.
Yeah.
And now they're worth less than that, And I was telling my wife, I don't know if I could try to sell them, but then they probably don't work. I don't have the adapters for them. I don't know.
Yeah, a lot of those didn't make it. A lot of those will have bad switches and stuff like that. But if you find a couple from that series that are working, they bring $300 or $400, like the multi-play and the
whammy pedals, I guess.
Oh God, yeah, the old whammies will bring money.
Echoes. I know the Echo. Like, I remember that was like the digital delay and Echoes. That was like, they were the first guys really selling something that you could use digital delay on. A pedal. So that was kind of cool. So I don't know, for sentimental reasons, maybe I won't shit can them. I'll just keep them. Keep them
Yeah,
on the
super
shelf.
work.
Right next to, there's all these pedals I can't find. I'm like, the wife's cleaning the garage. I'm like, look for this, look for that. I can't.
Gotta be somewhere.
Yeah.
Gotta be somewhere when you find it.
Yeah. Luckily, I have my Klon. I still have that. I don't have the box. For some reason, I know I didn't throw the box away, but and I'm telling my wife, look for the box. It's this little square cardboard box.
Just a plain white box.
Yep, plain white box, and it has a Xerox copy of the directions inside. I hope to God that didn't get thrown away, but who knows?
Yeah.
Well, this was fun. This was like a good introduction to this podcast. As we talk about everything, and I've talked about amps, I've talked about guitars. Now we're talking about pedals and effects, and this is probably the most. I think this is one of the most exciting aspects of the vintage guitar collection industry is these pedals, because they're so fun, and there's so many people from all ages are loving these things.
Yeah, that's the truth. I mean, it's a whole sick world you can get involved in, and once you're in, you can't get out.
Right. What do you?
You're in.
What's your holy grail right now that you are looking for and still haven't found?
Number one on our list, the Synthi Hi-Fi.
Synthi Hi-Fi. Okay. Anybody out there's got one? Let me know. I'll tell Garrett about it.
Yeah. Nothing won $55,000 for theirs.
Yeah. Jeez. Well, good. More power to you.
More power to you. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's super cool.
So that was kind of cool. I think I've taken a lot of your time here. I'm going to call you in about a couple of months, probably, when I'm trying to finalize this stuff. Right now, do you think pedals are holding, or are they dropping, or are they going up in value? Some are going up, some going down.
The market isn't nearly as hot as it was 4 or 5 years ago in the pandemic. I'd say things are largely holding.
Mm-hmm. But the stuff that's worth big bucks, probably always going to be worth big bucks. I mean, the fuzz bases.
The staples are the old TS9s, the old Big Moss, the old Rats, the old Fuzzes, Clons, all this stuff. That's all holding value or going up. The more obscure vintage stuff, that's going to be a little bit tougher to move. Still worth some money, but yeah, I think the effects pedal market's largely reflecting the economy as a whole.
Right. Give me a sleeper. What's something out there that just you think is a sleeper? Somebody can get pretty cheap now. That's going to be a goer shooter pretty soon.
That's a great question. That's a really great question. I got to think on it a second. The one that this is really obscure, but it's never made any sense to me, was that Keeley. I don't know. This is mainly for me. It's the Keeley Katana.
Mm-hmm.
That was like a $80 to $100 pedal. Then Keeley discontinued them. Then it became a $200 to $300 pedal. But Keeley also released something called the Katana Blues Driver.
Yes,
which
I've heard of this.
Katana with overdrive.
Right.
And those never brought money, and I couldn't understand it because they're super cool, and like they always sounded great to me. Or like another one is the Carbon Copy Bright, and these aren't super valuable pedals, but like they release very few Carbon Copy Brights, and it's in a bright green enclosure. I just think they sound great, and they don't. To me, they aren't bringing in the market what they should be based on how.
Let's go back to Keeley. You know how every once in a while you'll go on one of these websites and they'll say Keeley modded. Something is Keeley modded. Does that actually add quite a bit of value to a pedal?
Absolutely. I deal in a lot of modified pedals, Keeley and Analog Man mainly, because they're great dudes. They know what they're doing and they do it the best. But yeah, they'll go into a bum stock pedal. They'll change out crucial components, and you get a totally different pedal when it was returned to you. I think the reason why we're seeing so large of an increase in those modified pedals is because a lot of those companies just stopped doing it. It just wasn't worth it. Charge $50 to modify someone's pedal. The man hours that have to go into it just didn't justify cost of the service. So a lot of those companies aren't doing it anymore.
I know the Analog Man people really love the mods. And they go for big bucks. I see them all the time. Somebody's got something up there and they want a lot of money for it.
Yeah, $200 or $300 they're bringing now, and it's a really high quality pedal you're purchasing. I will say that, and it's just taken something that we all know and love, like a TS9 or a DS1, and turned it just a beast.
Maybe that's a good sleeper, man. Look for some of these modded.
I'd say they've already gone up quite a lot. But if the companies like Analog and Keeley continue to not modify pedals, if I can find one at a good price, I buy it. So put it like that.
So I think we got it. I think we did a pretty good show.
No worries. I hope it was.
But I sure appreciate it. And I know everybody listening is like, I hope they learned something.
Yeah, good investment.
I the one thing I will say is that the Klon there's nothing like it. nothing like it.
There is. That's the truth.
And
nothing like it.
And you'll see all these big stars out there, and they have that Klon in their thing because I can't find anything that even gets them close enough.
No, I was going to say earlier when we were talking about it, there's a reason why it's your favorite guitarist's favorite pedal.
Right. And anybody who's anybody has a Klon sitting in their signal chain, you know, and they're very protective. They basically, they put that in there, they carry it on themselves and walk off with it so that nobody else does.
You have to offer insurance for it.
Yep. They fly it and they buy a seat for it on the plane. No, I'm kidding. You ever see people do that with their Les Pauls? They buy the seat for the Les Paul.
The overhead bin.
Yep. All righty. Thank you so much, Garrett. And this was a lot of fun.
I appreciate you putting all this together. As always, if you need anything, got any questions or whatever.
Oh, I will. You're going to hear from me as you always do. Hey, what's this? What's that? So
always happy to help you out.
All right. Thank you again.
You're welcome. Good chatting with you, and we'll talk soon.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Buy That Guitar, presented by Vintage Guitar Magazine. Please support VG for all they do for guitar players like us. Please subscribe, like, share, and comment on this podcast. I'd love to hear from you at ram@vintageguitar.com. See you again next week. Bye-bye.
The official Vintage Guitar Magazine 2025 price guide has partnered with 33 of the top guitar dealers in the industry to provide the most accurate values for thousands of models. This includes electric guitars, acoustic guitars, basses, amplifiers, effects, mandolins, and banjos. Whether your instrument is an investment or simply a piece you enjoy playing, it's always helpful to know what it's worth. If you're checking out a guitar at your local shop and want to know its value before making the purchase, this guide is your go-to source for all the details. Available in both print and digital editions, you can have the guide right at your fingertips no matter where you go. Use code BUYGUITAR25 to receive 15% off the 2025 price guide when purchased directly from www.vintageguitar.com. Offer expires February 25th, 2025.